All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into a story that, well, it probably hits close to home for a lot of parents out there. We're talking about a math test, a super frustrated parent, a teacher who's sticking to the rules, and this really big question about what's actually fair in school.
Okay, so picture this. Your kid takes a math test, right? 25 questions. They absolutely nail it, get 23 of them right. You do the quick math in your head. Yep, that's a 92%. A solid A. I mean, that's a moment you feel pretty proud, right? You see that and you think, heck yeah, progress.
But then the test comes home, and you see this, a 50%, a failing grade. You're looking at the paper, and all the right answers are there, but the score, it's just completely off. I mean, talk about confusing and super frustrating, right? For the parent and the kid. So what gives? How can you get the answers right, but the grade wrong? All right, let's get into it. We're going to unpack this whole story and figure out what exactly happened. So our story starts with a fourth grader. And like a lot of kids, she was just having a really tough time with math. And we're not talking about just a bad week here or there. This was a struggle that had been going on all year long. The big hurdle? Multi-digit multiplication and division. The tough stuff. And the usual support systems, things like tutoring at school, they just weren't cutting it. It wasn't clicking. In fact, when she tried to use the method the school was teaching, she was getting it wrong like 80% of the time. That's a huge number. So, seeing their daughter struggle day in and day out, the parent decided to step in. They thought, okay, let's try something else. They sat down with her and taught her the way they learned math back in the day. What most of us would probably call the old-fashioned way. And you know what? It worked. It just clicked. All of a sudden, the concept started making sense. The parent said homework became a million times easier. Can you imagine the relief? The kid could finally tackle her homework with confidence. I mean, that is a huge win. Okay, so this begs the question, right? What was this school method that was causing so much trouble? And maybe more importantly, why are schools sometimes so rigid about using just one specific process, even if it's clearly not working for every student? Well, the school was using something called the box method. You might have seen it. The idea behind these newer methods is usually pretty solid. They're trying to show kids the why behind the math, not just the how. Like a deeper understanding of place value and all that. But for some students, all that breaking up numbers and drawing boxes, it just feels like a ton of extra confusing steps. So that's the core of the problem right there. You've got two methods on the table. For this particular kid, the school's way was complicated and confusing. The parent's way? It was direct, it was simple, and most importantly, she could actually get the right answer with it. And this whole clash of methods, well, it all came to a head right after that math test we talked about, and it sent this parent marching from the classroom straight to the principal's office. So, believe it or not, this whole thing boiled down to three little words. Show your work. Now, the parent's argument was, hey, she did show her work, just a different way. But the teacher had a very different take. To her, show your work meant you had to use the one specific method she taught in class. No exceptions. So when the parent tried to explain, but look, she got all the answers right, the teacher's response was, well, it was pretty blunt. Basically, too bad. And then came the warning. If it happens again, it's not going to be a 50%. It's going to be a 0. Wow. Okay, so at this point, the parent is just thinking this is ridiculous. And they did what a lot of us would probably do in that situation. They escalated. They went straight to the principal. And, as they put it themselves, they made it a big deal. And what happened? The principal stepped in and things got resolved pretty quickly. The teacher was called into the office, the daughter's grade was changed to the 92 she actually earned, and, here's the big one, they agreed she could solve problems any way she wants from now on, as long as she shows her work. A total win for the parent, right? Well, maybe. Because that last point says it all. The teacher was not happy. So you'd think that's the end of the story, right? Parent advocates, kid gets a fair grade, everyone moves on. But nope. Just as that fire was put out at school, a whole new one started right at home. Get this. The parent's own wife started questioning how they handled it. She thought they went way overboard, made a bunch of trouble for a teacher who's already super busy, and basically was being, in her words, a rotten egg. And that, right there, is the million-dollar question of this whole story. Was this parent a dedicated advocate, doing exactly what any good parent should do, Or were they a rotten egg who just went too far and made things worse? It's so interesting when you break it down because you've got four totally different viewpoints, and you can kind of see where each person is coming from. You've got the parent who's all about the results, the teacher who's sticking to the process, the principal who's just trying to find a compromise, and then the wife who's worried about, not rocking the boat. So it really makes you think, what would you have done? If this was your kid, what's your move? Do you teach them another way at home? Do you march right into the principal's office? Or do you just try to make it work within the teacher's rules, even if you know it's not working for your child? This story is just such a perfect example of that friction that happens sometimes between school rules and, well, real life parenting. These situations are so tough, and there's almost never a single clear-cut right answer. It really makes you wonder. So we'd love to hear from you all. What's your story? Have you ever had to deal with a school policy that just didn't make sense? Let us know.